So here we go, guys. Let's get into, again, I want to just do a quick little segment here with the draft board. And you guys can find this draft board, obviously, over at patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. So here's the updated board. Right now, we've got it sorted by final grade. You can see over to the right. It may be a little hard for y'all to see on the screen. I'll explain what we're going to do here. But with the cheat sheet, I got the rough draft together just to give you an idea, taking the notes. All right. So we got the rough draft put together. And what I'm going to do is compile that in a form where you guys will easily be able to see it in the Patreon group. So essentially what we do, Tim, I do this every year when I'm covering the draft or when I'm just kind of deep diving the draft. I like to focus on the top 100 prospects on our board. And what we do is we break them down in positions. So we'll have like cornerbacks. Here's the top 100 prospects at the cornerback position. Here's the defensive tackles. Here's the linebackers. Here's the offensive tackles, centers, guards, tight end. And then another one we're going to do this year is kick return specialists. I thought, why not dive into kick return specialists a little bit so we know when we get to the 7th round of our mock, hey, maybe we could grab one of these great kick returners from college football and be able to plug and play them as our new returner. Right now, I understand there's a portion of the fan base that wants Savion Williams returning kicks. I thought he done well. I really did. But if Savion's going to continue to step into a larger role in the offense, which I think Matt LaFleur and everybody wants him to do, then you may have to approach it a little bit different in that regard. And also, it's not like Savion lit the world on fire returning kicks last year. I don't think he was bad, but I do think that you could possibly get better. You know, there's some of these guys, Tim, that are coming out in the draft. I mean, just to name a few of them, Concepcion, wide receiver. I think it's Zachariah Branch, I believe it is. He's in the 56th spot. Jadarian Price from the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think he led all of college football last year, like 36 yards per return. He was unbelievable on returns. Now, will he be there? He's in the 60 spot for us. I don't know if I'm not saying we should take him at 52. The Packers may have a true first-round grade on him. He'd be best available. They could go that route. I don't know. I'd rather it not fall that way, but that's a great kick returner. You got Burks, another wide receiver, Beatty, Henderson, Thomas, Brown, Anthony. Anthony is from Wisconsin, right? You guys know about, I think it's Vinny Anthony, I believe is his name. Cauley Lacey. And then you got, of course, our boy Wetjen, or Weegan, I think is how they say the name. Is it Weegan? Do you know how to pronounce his name out of Iowa?
I do not.
So I've heard people
say, look stupid.
I've heard people say Wetjen, and then I've heard people say Weegan. And on the broadcast, it seemed like they said Weegan. So if anybody wants to correct that pronunciation, any Iowa fans in here, he's one that's very interesting because he's 413 on our big board. And there's a couple other spots that have him lower. So than that, or I'm sorry, higher than that. But again, as a kick returner, he kind of reminds me. I posted this in the Patreon group. Growing up as a Kentucky fan, if you guys know who Derek Abney was, Derek Abney was like one of the best players I ever seen played at the University of Kentucky. Now, obviously, he wasn't good enough to have a extended career in the NFL. I think he went undrafted. I want to say he signed with the Baltimore Ravens, and he was out of the league in no time. But the point is, he looks like that type of player. He's going to be a kick return specialist. I don't think he'll be able to contribute too much on offense outside of that, but who knows? Timmy kind of reminds you of like a Julian Edelman, and nobody expected Julian Edelman to come in the league and do what he did. You know,
it's true, and I love when you're talking about a return specialist, somebody late round value, right? We got all these 7th round picks laying around at the back of this draft. If we can pick up a guy like that can be solid in the return game. And you're right. I think we feel pretty good about our wide receiver room. We talked about Savion Williams. I'd like to see him more involved as a receiver as opposed to being leaned on to do a lot of special teams duties, so we'll see. But I think late round value, getting a return specialist is not the worst idea. I don't know if I'd take a swing, in the 2nd round with a guy like this, but certainly someone on our radar, like you said, what is he, 410 on our board, 415 on our board?
Yeah, I'm showing 413, but it's going to shuffle around a touch as we need to move forward for sure. So, yeah. And again, nobody's saying you should prioritize that. It's just it's been brung to my attention by Janice. I want to give a shout out to Janice over in the Patreon group, and there are others as well that have messaged me like, you need to check out Weegan, man. This guy he's a phenomenal kick returner. And again, we get to this point of the year where we don't truly care about that stuff, right? Yeah. And then you get in season and the special teams isn't up to par where we want. It's just like kicker. Nobody talks about kicker till we miss a kick. Now all of a sudden I can't believe Goody didn't fix this. As if people were talking in the offseason going, we need to sign that guy. We need to draft this stuff. So it's just funny how that all works. And I'm as guilty as anyone. So let's just go through real quick. We're going to sort by position, start with cornerback. I think we would all agree that's a position of need. Here are your top prospects. when it comes to cornerback. All right. And I'll go down the list here real quick. So you got Mansour Delaney, I think is how you say his name, or it's Delane out of LSU. He's your top corner. Got a 9 grade. He is going to be long gone, right? You got Jermod McCoy is second. He's 13th on our board overall. You got Avion Terrell, who is 20th on our board. Colton Hood out of Tennessee is 29th on our board. Chris Johnson's one we looked up and got at 52 once or twice, Tim. He's out of San Diego State. He is currently in the 34th spot on our board. If you can get the 34th best prospect at a position of need like cornerback at the 52nd pick, you're really, really liking how that falls into place. We got D'Angelo Pons in the 40 spot, right? You've got Keith Abney. Abney is going to land in the 43 spot currently. You've got Cease. I think that's how his name is. Cease is how you say Brandon Cease out of South Carolina. You guys correct me if I got that name wrong. He's in the 44 spot. You've got Keontae Scott is a very interesting one, Tim, because I've got him still lit up blue to trigger for us. Hey, look, they're saying he's a cornerback, but he played safety. So we got the V. If you guys see a position right here with the V in it, right, that simply means he's versatile. Okay, so take another look. He might be more of a slot corner. He may be able to play all positions, which adds value, but that's just something to kind of keep an eye on there as well. And then, of course,
to Javon Bullard type of guy, right? You can put him on the back end. You can put him in the slot. Yeah,
absolutely. And then I'm always going to screw this name up. I've seen it pronounced several ways as well. Is it Igbinosun? Igbinosun, maybe?
That sounds good.
Yeah. Cornerback out of Ohio State. Pretty good football player, man. We got a 77.9 grade on him. He's sitting in the 78 spot. So that's one of those rare players that if you go offensive line 52 and then you come back to 84 and he's sitting there, that would be good value there at the cornerback position. Then you got Julian Neal out of Arkansas. He is sitting in the 80 spot. And then, of course, Chandler Rivers has recently dropped. Now, why did he drop? You guys know we had him as like a slam dunk pick earlier in the process. Well, we just switched over to Tankathon. Okay. We went from Walter Football to Tankathon. I think Walter Football had him higher. Tankathon has him at 89. And then also Dane Brugler's top 100 came out and he's in the 88 spot. Now the consensus big board had him at 98. The PFF big board was much higher at 68. We've got him sitting in the 81 spot. So that might be a guy, if he's around when you pick at 84, makes a lot of sense at the cornerback position. So those are the top 100 prospects at the cornerback position that made our cheat sheet. Does that make sense, Tim?
It does. And it's something we need to pay attention to because taking a swing at corner with that second round pick might not be the worst approach in the world, right?
Absolutely. Now, we also talked about offensive line and specifically center. I think we would all agree, the large majority of us would agree, we'd love to get Tyler Linderbaum in free agency. We've now debunked all the myths that the Packers don't have the money to do that, right? We know that's a bunch of BS. That's a bunch of doom and gloom. We've shown you time and time again how you can free up that money in a split second to be able to get a player of Linderbaum's level. Now, let's look at the centers in the draft. So you'll notice they're going to be lit up blue, okay, on the interior offensive lineman tab. All right. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong. If there's another player that, hey, no, they're listing him as a center. Sometimes as you get closer to the draft, all of a sudden they change them. They say, okay, this is a guard that's going to play center. So we'll all share that information, especially over in the Patreon group. But the top center available will be Connor Lew. Now, Connor Lew's lit up red because he's got the ACL. Probably won't be available till October. I don't think anybody would be excited about spending the 52nd pick on a center that may not even play his rookie year, depending on how the rehab goes, right? So that'd be a little bit of a gamble. I think I speak for everyone. I feel confident saying I speak for everyone when I say we are tired of drafting injured players. Yeah. Like, we need to get healthy at some point, right? So Connor Lew is in the 58 spot for us. Then we got Jake Slaughter. Jake Slaughter is in the 71st spot. Then Brian Parker would be next at the center position. He's in the 82 spot. And then Pat Coogan is in the 89 spot. So Logan Jones will be the next center. He's just outside of the top 100. So, again, you've got 4 centers in the top 100, Tim. So if you can get Jake Slaughter at 52, according to our board, it's a bit of a reach. So it might make sense to not take Jake Slaughter at 52, maybe go offensive tackle or guard if there's better value there, and then come back at 84. And whoever's available out of Jake Slaughter, Brian Parker, and Pat Coogan, maybe that would be the way to go at 84. Yep. How do you see that? Would you rather reach on a center if we don't go get Tyler Linderbaum or McGovern or somebody in free agency? Would you rather reach on a center knowing we get the best center in the draft guaranteed at 52? Or would you rather wait and use the cluster buster method there with Parker and Coogan.
I did a mock last night, just kind of screwing around, and I was able to get Slaughter at 84. So
That'd be great.
I do like that approach. Or, like you said, with Connor Lew, we have this, guy coming off of injury, but if he fell, if that causes him to fall on draft day, I'm not opposed to taking him later. If he falls out, into that second, third round range, you never know. But as far as reaching at 52, I don't know. I don't think I would take Jake Slaughter at 52. I think I would roll the dice and think I could get him at 84. That'd be my take on it.
Yeah, I think I agree, man. Because again, when we started the process, he was much higher, and he's since dropped a little bit. And the reason being is Dane Brugler has him at 83, and Tankathon has him at 84. Before that, his PFF grades. I mean, he was the 8th. His PFF grades are what really stand out to me. I mean, starting in 2023, he was the 9th highest graded center in all of college football. Over 400 teams with centers, right? So there's 400 starting centers. He was 9th best. That was in 23. In 24, he was 6th best. In 25, he was 8th best. So you're talking about really, really consistent play on a bad program too. Yeah, he's one of the few highlights of the Florida Gators program at the moment. Sorry if you're a Florida fan out there. I'm just speaking what I know is
they got a pretty good kicker though. They got a pretty good kicker too.
They do, Tim. That they do. We need to do a deep dive. That's probably next on my list, is I'm going to do a quick little deep dive in all the rookie kickers coming out, and try to key in on maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 kickers. Like, hey, I would be okay with a late round pick there, or possibly bring in a couple of these guys as undrafted free agents to let them compete with Brandon McManus. McManus still may end up being the best choice, but
sure.
It's such a tough situation. It is. So again, with Jake Slaughter, the PFF Big Board had him at 78. Consensus Big Board had him at 93. Tankathon 84. Dane Brugler had him at 83 as well. So the PFF grades are what's kicking him up. So I'm with you, Tim. The whole point there is probably want to hold off until 84 with Jake Slaughter, if he's there. And again, if you sign Tyler Linderbaum, I don't think you're spending a second round pick on a guy that is not going to beat out Linderbaum for the starting center position, unless there's multi-position value, which we've also got PTSD from that, right? Moving these offensive linemen all over the place. So,
and we know when it comes to Slaughter, he's pretty much a pure center, right? Mm-hmm. We haven't seen a lot of guard or tackle play out of him. So,
yeah. Now let's fall back and look at guard real quick. I think it's worth mentioning there's only 3 guards in our top 100. Okay, you've got Lone, however you say the name, Loane maybe. He is out of Memphis. All right. He's in the 15 spot on our board. So he'll probably be long gone. That'll be your first guard taken off the board. Then you got Pregnon, guard out of Oregon. All right. He's in the 46 spot. And then we got to fall down to Chase Basantis, who's sitting in the 73 spot. So essentially, if you're picking at 52 and Pregnon is there, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that you go get a guard in the first round. If you are getting the second best guard in the draft, I wouldn't rule that out. And if you get him and we do decide to move on from Aaron Banks, and you just plug and play Chase Basantis right in at left guard, I don't hate that idea. But the point is, when you looked at cornerback, we had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, probably about 12 or 13 prospects in our top 100. When you get to center, there's only 4. When you get to, and one of those is injured, you get to guard, there's only 3. So you're slim pickings at the interior offensive line within the top 100. Obviously, if they can play and they've got the measurables, they're going to play tackle over guard. There's more money there. There's more value there. You're going to get drafted higher. We'll get into tackles next. But that's the big thing that sticks out to me there, Tim, is Pregnon's one that at 52, I wouldn't hate that pick. I wouldn't hate it at all.
Neither would I. But it's easy to see how there might be more value at 52 in the cornerback crop of talent. However, knowing that if you go corner and you pass up on a guard or a center, chances are it's going to be slim pickings once you hit 3rd and 4th round. These guys are going to be off the board immediately. So it's a decision I'm glad I don't have to make. I feel for the guys in the front office as they're doing their mocks and getting ready for this draft here in a couple months. So it's a tough choice, man. Really is.
Yeah. All right. So next we're going to go offensive tackle. I wouldn't roll this out. We love drafting tackles and kicking them into guard. So Spencer Fano, offensive tackle out of Utah. He's in the 9 spot. You've got Muagoa, if I'm saying it right, out of Miami. Francis Muagoa I don't even know. I'm going to try.
Who?
Thanks, Snoop. The names blow me away every year. It's like just when I think, okay, this year, I'm glad that year is behind us. Next year won't be that bad. And then we get to the next year, I'm like, this redneck can't keep up. So anyway, he is in the 11 spot. Caden Proctor out of Alabama is in the 17 spot. All right. You got Monroe Freeling, offensive tackle from Georgia, is in the 27 spot. You've got Caleb Lomu, offensive tackle from Utah. He is sitting in the 35 spot. Then our boy Blake Miller. We've drafted Blake Miller at 52, right? He's in the 38 spot. That's great, great value. Now, when you get to Jennings Dunker is 49th on our big board. I'd be okay with him at 52. And again, some people project him as a guard. Some of these guys may shift over to the guard position by the time our board's complete and the draft gets here. But as it sits right now, we're going to kind of leave it where it's at. So those are a handful of guys you want to look for. You've also got Ihanakor, Max Ihanakor out of Arizona State. He's in the 52 spot. You got Tiernan. He's in the 55 spot out of Northwestern. You got Delby Lemieux, tackle out of Dartmouth. He is currently in the 72 spot. And then you got Austin Barber out of Florida. That's Jake Slaughter's teammate down there with the Gators. He's in the 87 spot. So here, Tim, with tackle, you've got just as many options really as you do at cornerback. So if I had to bet on what position the Packers would draft with their 52nd pick, I'd probably put money on corner or offensive tackle just based on the numbers and how they fall. Does that make sense?
It does, especially since we've already had the defensive lineman conversation, right? You know, you could go early, but it might screw up your whole board if you go early on the D line. So I could see it being a corner or O line, you know, guard or tackle.
Yeah, for sure.
Really, like we said, we got to see what happens with free agency, right? Are we gonna make a move and solve this center issue before we even worry about drafting someone? You know, it could really change our approach, you know?
It would change it tremendously. And what we're going to do with our mock draft here in a few minutes, guys, we're just going to jump in as if we didn't fill any needs. So we're going to treat it like all the needs still exist because we've been doing, the off-season modeler and this and that, and we're showing how you can make the cap work and go get someone. Hell, there was one we did the other day where we focused on signing cornerbacks, and we added like 5 people to the roster, stayed $9 million under the cap, and we're able to go under. That's probably the one I felt the best about, and that didn't include having our boy Linderbaum at center. And you guys know I'm a big Linderbaum. I would love to see them sign him. But if you go cornerback and you can get it at what the market value is projecting on like 2 or 3 different sites, you could land 2 solid corners. And I'm not saying they're like number 1 caliber corner, but I do think they would be the top 2 corners on our roster day 1 of camp. If you go that route, you can fix the cornerback position that way. The problem is if you're looking at it strictly from a draft board perspective, you go, I don't want to get too aggressive in free agency with corners because we got a boatload of corners we like in the draft. You know what I mean? So that's where it gets a little bit finicky. So if you went supply and demand, I can see how the goal would be, no, let's go offensive line in free agency. But another position here is defensive tackle. I want to hit this real quick before we move on to the mock draft. So here are the defensive tackle cheat sheet list members. All right. You got Caden McDonald. He's sitting in the 21 spot. Caleb Banks is in the 23 spot. Peter Woods is 31. My boy Kristen Miller, 33. Then you got Lee Hunter, big dog Lee Hunter out there at 41. And then it drops off to Jackson here, Darrell Jackson Jr., who the Packers met with out of Florida State. He's in the 91 spot. And then Big Citrus just squeaked into the top 100.
Here's a guy.
So what you're seeing with the defensive tackle position, Tim, is you've got 21, 23, 31, 33, 41. Those are all kind of in the same ballpark as each other. And then it drops off dramatically to Darrell Jackson and Big Citrus. So if Lee Hunter, Kristen Miller, Peter Woods, Caleb Banks, or Caden McDonald, any of those guys are available at 52, makes a lot of sense to pull the trigger there. The problem is when we did our mock drafts, it never happened that way. Maybe it'll happen this morning. We'll pull the trigger on a 3-tech. I don't know. But what do you think about D-tackle?
Yeah, I did. Like I said, I was screwing around, did a mock, and I took Big Citrus at 52 and was able to get Slaughter at 84. But after that, the rest of my board was a dumpster fire. So it all depends on what the approach is. Honestly, I've said this before. I don't care. O-line, D-line, give me trenches, man. We need trenches. I know corner is a need as well. And, we talked about the value at corner, going there in the second round since we don't pick in the first. But can't go wrong with trenches. And being a defensive guy, I'm not going to be mad if we take a defensive tackle, at 52. But I do think, I'm with you, Clay. It might make more sense to go guard or tackle at that spot.
Losmel in the chat says, Goody likes those SEC guys. He does. And now one of his right-hand men that he just hired from Auburn's former GM. He also spent some time at LSU, kind of put together that top 10 class and transfer portal down there with Brian Kelly before he got crap canned. He's a guy that is very, very familiar with the SEC as well. So we'll probably see our share of SEC guys, no doubt about it. 2-0 for this says, I think defensive tackle should be a free agency move for a starting option right away. Maybe draft later rounds, but for the current roster, free agent would be the best. So looking at that, 2-0 for this, I think it's a great point. We found 3 that we liked in free agency, right? And I'm going to extend this list and give you guys a free agency cheat sheet list as well. That's the goal if I have time. I'm making a lot of promises, my mouth's writing a lot of checks that my butt might not be able to cash here. But defensive tackle is David Onyemata, Logan Hall, and Calais Campbell. Those are 3 that really piqued my interest. And we were able to sign those guys the other night. We actually did one where we focused on D tackle, and we signed both Onyemata and Logan Hall. And again, that's market value according to Spot Track. That's market value according to Stick to the Model, all that stuff, right? So we'll see. We know that stuff is never spot on with the market value. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower, depending on the supply and demand for that specific position across the league. But yeah, I would be okay with that too. You get a veteran presence inside. And when you look at D tackle, again, we showed you it's thin at D tackle this year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
At least in the top 100 prospects. So that would make a lot of sense if you went into free agency and you got D tackle and you shored that up, and then you came back in the draft and you went cornerback, or maybe even offensive tackle / interior offensive line, go that route. That would make a lot of sense too. So
we've also center, if you have to go center because you spent your capital in free agency on defensive tackle, right? And maybe we're not able to make a move at center.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's just a quick rundown, guys, of our cheat sheet and our top 100 prospects at the positions of need for the Packers. If you guys are watching this video back later, let us know in the comments, how do you feel about that list? Is there somebody maybe we left off that you like, or maybe you love the list? Just hit us with a Go Pack Go in the comments. We would greatly appreciate that. And also hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you catch our live streams here in the future. We appreciate y'all.